Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of nPhoto Live Chat. We are just getting started, and out of courtesy for people filing on in, we'll kind of slowly ease on into things. As you might have heard, as you might see now, I am thrilled to be here with Nicole Begley, the founder of the Hair of the Dog Facebook group, which is now known as Hair of the Dog Podcast Community. She also has her own studio in Charlotte, North Carolina. Nicole Begley, photography, the pet photography extraordinaire. Once again, we're so excited to have you here with us today, Nicole. What would you like to say to our audience before we get started?
Oh, just hello, and thanks for having me. And I'm super excited to be here. And yeah, happy to share anything that I can with you.
Awesome. And once again, she has a tremendous Facebook group that boasts over 13,000 members of professional pet photography. It really is a wonderful community to any professional pet photographers or aspiring professional pet photographers out there to really learn anything that you need to know about the tools of the trade and so on and so forth. She also has a wonderful podcast platform that I highly recommend you all check out and listen to. So we're going to get started today. We have a lot to talk about. Of course, we're going to get into pet photography. We're going to talk about a little business advice, marketing advice, print products, so on and so forth. We'll even touch a little bit on mini sessions. And with that, I have to say, on behalf of nPhoto, the company I work for, we are reaching the tail end. How's that for my pet pun? Of our mini sessions promo, but it is still active. So if you have not yet, do not worry. You can still take advantage of this. And what this does, 45% off for client orders for you on select products. And we have chosen 6 of the best products to pair with mini sessions for you to use this code with. That includes things like folio boxes, small albums, fine art prints, image boxes with prints inside them, so on and so forth. Just to give you a little idea, this little mini guy is about a 6x6 and a nice yellowy velvet textile is included in our 45% off mini sessions promo. Also, as I mentioned, our triplex, which just got a new makeover. As you see now, you can get them with matted prints on the inside. Very pretty. This triplex comes available in 6 different sizes, 6 different color options for the mats that you can choose from. Again, you can get that 45% off for your client orders with our mini sessions promo. There's a link now to the landing page in the comments. I highly recommend you click on that, and you can use that over and over until the discount expires at the end of December 15th. So go ahead and take advantage of that. That's our way of trying to help you guys out there. We know it's a rough time for all of you in the photography industry. So let me jump back to my guest. She's been waiting for too long. And let's get started with this wonderful live chat. Nicole, if you don't mind, I want to start here with the big news, and that is that you've changed the name of your Facebook group. I'm sure a lot of people in the audience are curious of what all that was about.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind, what was the reason for the change, and what does that mean?
Oh, really? All it means is we changed the name. Nothing else changes. It's still going to be the best group on the internet to hang out and chat pet photography and share images and learn pet photography. So definitely come check it out. It's now the Hair of the Dog Podcast Community. Used to just be Hair of the Dog Professional Pet Photographers. Only reason I changed is we've had a podcast, the Hair of the Dog Podcast, since February, late February that we launched it. And it's been fantastic. We have about 40 some episodes that are released right now. We do a new one every Tuesday. And just wanted to make more people aware of that place to get more pet photography discussion and conversations.
Absolutely. Wonderful. And in the description of today's event, we have included some links to Nicole's platforms, including the Hair of the Dog Facebook group. We will be sure to provide you another link in the comments section as well to make it at your convenience. So please listen to Nicole and go to her podcast platform to learn some wonderful insight into the pet photography group. And I see some people doing that. If I didn't say so, please let us know in the comments that you're here with us and where you are from. Hello, Travis from Chicago, the 312. That's where I originally came from. I guess that's a weird way to say that. But hi from Central Virginia. Hello, Tina. And Kunigunda, hello from Poland. That's where I'm sitting right now. And hello, Alicia from Vermont. A wonderful group we have right now. And again, let us know in the comments if you're coming in, where you're coming from. I guess I don't have to say what kind of photography you do. It's probably pretty clear.
Photograph puppies and horses.
Speaking of pet photography, Nicole, now I read that you started actually as an animal trainer before you got involved with pet photography. When or kind of how and why did you decide to go from animal training into pet photography?
Yeah, so I was a zoological animal trainer for 13 years, worked with free flight birds and seals and aardvarks and cats and monkeys and all the things. And it was awesome. It was amazing. I loved it. I had gotten to the point where I was kind of in management of the zoo that I worked at. And I was apart from the animals, just going through some changes at the facility. And it was just like, I had lost the passion for what I was doing, and not so much that as much as, in the zoo world, it's definitely a career of passion and not a career of abundant cash. And I was pregnant with my second child, and I was looking at daycare options, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be working full time basically to pay for daycare. And so it was like, I did love my job, but not that much to essentially be working for free. So I was like, all right, it's time to move on. And I've always wanted to do something on my own. I love creating new things. I love having my own business. I knew I had an entrepreneurial spirit. So I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And at first, the first initial thing was, well, I could be a dog trainer. But then I realized that my patience level for humans is not as high as my patient level for the animals. So I would not do well coming back to a client's house when they're like, why is my dog still doing this? And I'd say, well, have you done your homework? No, that's why. I knew my limits and I knew I couldn't handle that. So, kudos to all you dog trainers out there. I don't know how you do it. But then I started to learn, photography. I've always loved taking pictures of the animals that I worked with. I had no idea what I was doing other than I had a nice camera and I'd point it and, compose it, but I didn't shoot on manual at the time. I knew none of that. So I was like, well, I can learn more about this. And I would love to photograph dogs and animals, but I probably can't make a business of just that. So I'll photograph families as well. And I did. That was 2010 when I started that. And I opened my business as a family photographer and pet photographer. I had two kind of sections to that business. And about 5 years in, then I went full pets and gave up the families, which was pretty scary at that point because the families were completely hands off. I did zero marketing. It was all referrals. I had really big orders. They were doing wall art. It was just a lot of easy income in my business. And I still liked it. I didn't dislike it. But I knew I wanted to grow the pet side more. And I knew I wanted to create hair of the dog more. And I knew I wanted to spend more time on these things. So I had to let that go to open up the space to do the other things. And that was scarier than leaving my full-time job was doing that. But it worked out.
Yeah, I would say so. Worked out very well. And so you have an immense knowledge of working with animals, and you had that before you started in your trade now as a pet photographer. And I'm actually going to jump to this question first, and that is, as a pet photographer, how much of the success as a pet photographer do you think comes from having that knowledge of animals and how to work with the animals versus the photography side of it and kind of knowing the ins and outs of the photography world?
They're both important, but I would say if you're going to be a pet photographer or an animal photographer of any specific animal, whether equine or cat or dog, it is imperative that you are familiar with the natural history and behavior of those animals. And you become familiar on how to elicit the best behaviors out of them and how to work with them in a calm manner and know kind of what they're feeling based on their body language, which isn't necessarily a prerequisite that you have to have a job in, zoological animal training or in dog training, but you do need to be familiar with that and be open to learning more about it and making sure that you're always learning more about what these animals are trying to tell us. And also then learning a little bit about how to get the best behavior out of them. We always used in the zoo world to train our animals something called operant conditioning, which is usually, a positive reinforcement-based system. There's a great book, super easy read from Karen Pryor called Don't Shoot the Dog that you can read through that book and you have like the basics, positive reinforcement training 101. And, you know, just having that little bit of basis is going to help you when you show up at a session and maybe there's a dog that's a little bit nervous, kind of work through that fear a little bit. So then by the end, they're like, this is so much fun. You know, I'm a great model, and they're not stressed. You're going to get better expression from the dog because they're more comfortable. The owner's more comfortable because they see their dog's comfortable. So it just helps a lot.
Wow. Okay. And you mentioned the book, Don't Shoot the Dog.
Yep.
I'm going to throw out there Hair of the Dog, the professional photography group.
Yeah.
What are some other places that pet photographers can go to learn more or to brush up their knowledge of working with animals and understanding that language?
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely YouTube, but you have to be careful because there's really two schools of dog training out there. There's the more positive reinforcement based, and then there's the more, you know, negative reinforcement based way. And they're both effective is the problem. So there's a certain dog trainer that's been on National Geographic that, you know, I think we're all aware of. The, you know, dog, then he... Anyway, dog whisperer. Anyway, you watch it, and as a trainer, I watch it. I'm like, oh my God. And that kind of training is effective in the hands of someone that knows how to use it, but it doesn't build confidence in the dog. And it's something that will fall apart when the owner then is unable to maintain that type of training. So like the positive reinforcement training, I like to say, like, you can't mess it up. Like that positive punishment, negative reinforcement side, if you do that with the wrong dog, it can be a dangerous situation because they can then react negatively and biting or, you know, reacting badly to you. It's like, you can't mess up positive reinforcement. You might reinforce the wrong things a couple times, but, you know, it's not going to be a dangerous situation. So highly recommend just learning more about that, and just making sure you're learning from people that you respect and trust.
Okay. And you listed a lot of animals that you've worked with from your time working in the zoo and things, but right now you're specializing in which animals? Or are you photographing kind of anything that walks in the door?
No, dogs and horses. I will photograph other things, but I don't market them. I used to market to cat owners too, but you know, really I found that I enjoy photographing the dogs a little bit more. And I love photographing horses. I've been a lifelong horse enthusiast. I've been riding since I was 8. So yeah, those are my two main subjects.
All right. I just want to address the audience quickly. Hello to everybody. So many people flooded in the past few minutes. Hello. I'm sorry. I'm just going to do like a shotgun hello to all of you. Keep the comments coming. If you have any questions for Nicole or I, drop them in the comments and we'll do our best to get to them and address them and ask them live for you. And also, Jen, I see that you put down a name of a book that you like to read as well. That's a great idea. If any of you other fellow pet photographers out there have some valuable suggestions of places people can go or things they can read, like books they can read or something to learn a little bit more to help themselves, please let them know in the comments. Now, Nicole, you mentioned the positive reinforcement, so saying like good job and things like that, as opposed to the negative reinforcement as, you know, punishing or things like this. That's something that you do. What are some other things that you might do with your pet clients to, you know, make sure that they are obeying and kind of doing more or less what they need to be doing? Yeah.
So one of the things that I think is really important is setting up the expectation with the owner before your session. So letting them know, hey, we're going to go to the session. We're working with an animal that has thoughts and feelings of their own, that doesn't speak our language. Like, we're just going to let your dog be a dog. And I guarantee you, I have photographed dogs that are going to be more hyper, more excited, more, you know, like barking crazy, whatever. Don't listen as well. Like, I've done it all. Don't worry about it. Whatever they give us is going to be fine. And then letting them know too, because a lot of owners get really stressed out thinking that my dog's not going to behave, you know, and even though this photographer is great and I know she's created beautiful images, like she's not going to be able to do that of my dog because my dog's not good enough. So that's like this big objection that they have, because they just think their dog's not going to behave. So I let them know that we just want the dog to be a dog. I do not expect the dog to be sitting, you know, to be like at attention all the time. I just tell them, like, when you get there, just let the dog sniff. If I need you to do something specific with the dog, I'll let you know. Otherwise, just let the dog chill and be the dog. And when I'm photographing them, like if we start in a sit and then the dog stands up, you know, the owner, their initial initial thing that they want to do is just be like, sit, 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 and try to make that dog to sit again. But I know that, you know, if I don't mind the dog standing in the image, as soon as they stand, I said, it's okay, he can stand, so that they just know, oh, okay, this is okay too. So just setting that expectation and reminding them throughout the session, hey, your dog's doing great. You know, oh, this is great. Oh yeah, no, that's fine. He can do that. Is great. And sometimes you just need to take a break, and you can say, okay, he just needs a break. Let him go sniff around for a few minutes and we'll start again. And just reminding them, if you say that, this is completely normal. Like, got everything under control. This is normal. Don't worry about it.
All right. Now, Nicole, is there a particular time that you recall when a pet client was particularly, you know, unreally crazy or something, or not really behaving? What was the time when something like that might have happened, and what did you try to do to
for the
help
dogs? Like yeah, so
yeah, for the dog.
I mean, people behaving badly or dogs. Who am I going to throw under the bus? Let's see, for dogs. Yes. Well, in general, I find one of the hardest breeds to photograph, and Travis is in here and he is a master at it, and he can probably agree, is photographing sight hounds, because like animals like greyhounds, Lukis, things like that, because they're bred to be focused on sight and vision. And so I tend to get expression from dogs with a variety of sounds. So for those dogs, usually the first time I use the sound, they're like, ooh, and they give me like this really amazing, and they're the cutest. They're one of my favorite breeds. Amazing look. But to get that look again becomes really hard. And then I have to resort to throwing things or have somebody run or push something. Like, it has to then become visual, which you can only do so many times. So that particular breed tends to be one of the harder ones, I think, to photograph. And this brings up another good point. Another thing, in addition to behavior to be familiar with, and body language, also being aware of the natural history of certain breeds, because, you know, a Chihuahua is going to photograph very differently than a Golden Retriever is going to photograph very differently than a Greyhound. So, you know, just being aware of some of these different natural history things that are going on. So yeah, and then one of the other hard ones is when you're photographing an older dog that maybe can't see or hear so much anymore. And gosh, whenever I'm photographing a deaf dog, I have to say to the owner so many times, I'm like, man, sorry, I know he can't hear me. I just tend to still be making all my noises and doing all these things because it's just second nature. But for those dogs, I find just having a really stinky treat, well, that, you know, their nose still works well. So that's how I usually try to get their attention.
Okay. Yeah. And this is great points that you're bringing up. You know, I'm not a pet photographer, professional pet photographer, maybe quite obviously, but those are things, like you say, that I never would have thought of, that different breeds photograph different ways, and that different dogs are going to be stimulated by different things. And like you say, when you have a deaf dog and most of your stimuli are sounds, what do? Well, you can go with a stinky treat, as you suggest. Yeah, that's really fantastic. We were talking a little bit earlier, and Jen in the comments said it's kind of like toddlers.
100%.
But I
just have way more patience for the dogs. Actually, I had a lot of patience for other kids' toddlers. You know, you can always, when I was photographing families, the mom would always be super stressed out again. I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. Like, I had a lot of patience for other people's kids. My own kids, sometimes not so much. Patty has a really good question here, Eugene, that I think is worth mentioning. And she's asking, what do you do when you have a client who uses negative reinforcement on their dog? Because that does happen sometimes. And, you know, and this whole negative reinforcement thing, I think, becomes, I don't know. When you say negative reinforcement, people obviously start to think like, oh my God, it's terrible, terrible, terrible. But certain things are like, you know, is just putting a little pressure on their back end to make them sit. And then you pull it away when they sit. So that's technically negative reinforcement. If you're just putting like a little tiny touch, it's not a big deal. If you're taking your hand and like smashing their back end down so they have all this pressure on their hips and their legs are getting splayed, okay, that's a little bit of a bigger deal. So, you know, and then of course, if you have a client who's like, you know, yanking on their dog, or, you know, God forbid, kicking them or doing something terrible, that's a whole different level. So there's all these levels of that. So when you're in a situation and things are starting to escalate a little bit, you can usually tell that a client is getting stressed about it. So it just goes back to, no, they're doing great. So I usually just, as soon as they start to say sit, because they'll always start with like sit, sit, first. And I just say, no, they're good. They can stand. And that's usually enough to just stop that right then and there. I have never had a client that's taken it to the point where I'm like, no, we need to stop. But if they did, like if they hit their dog or was like just taking that way too far, I'd be like, listen, I don't work like this. We're not going to continue this way. Like I'll end the session. Like we can't do this. The dog's doing fine. We're going to do it this way. So I would just be pretty adamant with like, no.
We talked about the difficult pet clients, but do you ever have the human clients in those situations maybe get a little defensive and say like, no, I got this. Like I'm just imagining it with like a toddler. Like if you tried to tell a mother or father, like, yo, they'll be like, hey, I know how to raise my. Do you get that with dogs and things too, where people are like, okay, thank you, but I can take care of this, even though they're kind of doing it wrongly?
Well, like I said, I haven't gotten it to the point where I've had to pull it out that way because I think I start to see it really early. Like I can see the owner start to get stressed. So I just tell them right then and there, like, no, we're good. The dog's doing fine. Like it's okay that he stands. Let's take a little break. We'll come back and start again in a minute. And that's usually enough to kind of short circuit that so that it doesn't continue escalating.
Okay. Yeah. That was a great question, Patty. Thank you. And if any of you else in the audience have a question, don't hesitate to pop it in there, and we'll be happy to take a look at it as we go along. I have questions to ask for Nicole, but hey, if you guys have something too, we're all here for you. So don't worry. Don't be intimidated by the questions that I have or anything. If you have something, please put it in the comments. I want to jump to social media, to Facebook.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about your group and how important, this is something that I think pretty well known now, but how important is, social media for pet photographers, maybe specifically like Facebook?
All right. So might not be the answer that a lot of people say. I say that social media for me is the icing on my marketing cake, but I don't rely on social media for marketing my business. I've never found that to be my main marketing tool because it's changed throughout the years. 10 years ago, you'd put something on Facebook and tag it, and all of a sudden, especially family photography, be like, boom, 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 boom. You have all these referrals. But Facebook, has the platform's gotten bigger. They want to make sure people are having a good experience. They're, different algorithms now. There's just, it's so many different things in play. And my personal outlook on marketing is definitely that, like, I want to make sure I'm in control of my marketing. And if I put all of my eggs in a social media basket, whether that's Facebook or Instagram, I don't even own those connections. Like Facebook could shut my page down tomorrow, and then I have nothing to market my business with. So I always say it's a great icing. It's a great way to make connection. It's a great way to stay, on top of mind. It's a great way to get some engagement from your audience by asking like, oh, here's my dog. Here's his silly names. What's your dog's silly names? Like just getting a conversation going with people. It's great to make connection. So it's definitely worthwhile, but you definitely need to have, in my opinion, other marketing strategies going on as well.
Okay. Other marketing strategies. I want to get back to that in a minute. I want to ask you about more details about your Hair of the Dog group, but there was a question in the audience. That was a good one. So I'm going to kind of take a little bit of a left turn here. Fine. From Marie. She says, what's a good way to get clients to book at this time of year, even if it's a session for the spring or the summer?
Oh, yeah. So one of my favorite ways to get more sessions on my books, no matter what time of year it is doing charitable marketing. And I find this works really well, especially for like early spring, because, after Christmas, we're busy in the fall, and then Christmas comes, and then it's like first quarter lag. Even if your weather's decent, like people just had Christmas. So, and every year the first quarter is usually a bit slower. So, can use that opportunity to start to bring clients in for that time. Or you can market that time to bring them in at the very beginning of spring, whatever you wanted to do. But with charitable marketing, basically it is a win, triple win. You partner with a charity. It could be a rescue. It can be a human charity. It can be, any sort of charity really. And they offer a session, a special collection package to their followers. And when their followers book, you give a little something to the charity. So I've done where the session fee is less and they get a little product credit. You can do like an all-inclusive little package where then people can add on more afterwards. But it's great because the charity makes some money, which, the charities, especially first quarter, are always there. Their donations are slimmer than too. The clients, get a great experience, and you get some great new clients. And by the charity, promoting this, then they're promoting it. Even if you don't have like this big list, you don't have this big email list, you don't have all these people of your own to promote to, the charity's promoting to their people. And those people love that charity, and the fact that you're helping that charity, now that goodwill rubs off on you, and they now love your business because you have something in common with this, cause that's close to their heart. So I think it's like the slam dunk, my most favorite marketing strategy.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That is a great idea. And we have another question from the audience. I'm going to put it on hold. I'm going to come back to it because this is going to lead perfectly into my next question. And you were talking about Facebook. It's a great way to market, but there's other ways too.
Yep.
You're talking about the charities. And what are some other key places in a community pet photographers can like look into to build a strong network and kind of build and help sustain the pet photography, genre and pet experience is what I'm looking for.
Yeah. I mean, any pet business, like, start to look at your target market, and really it's going to depend on who your target market is, exactly what who your partner businesses kind of are, because even though maybe they're all dogs, they could be quite different based on your target market. So in generally, pet photography has one of two usually, and that is the empty nesters. So they're a little bit older, their kids are out of the house, and now their dog's taken the place of their kids. And then there's the young professionals that aren't yet married, or maybe married without kids, but they don't have kids. They're young without kids. And actually there's a third group, which are, adult, middle-aged, couples or women that have their pet and they, don't have kids. They chose not to have children. So those are like your three main buckets of pet photography clients. And depending which one you want to target most might depend a little bit on who your partner market, businesses are. Maybe for the young professionals, there's a whole bunch of dog-friendly breweries, which maybe is not who you'd be reaching out for if you're trying to target the empty nesters. Maybe for them, it would be more of like a grooming business because they tend to have maybe smaller dogs. Just looking at who you're serving and what businesses they tend to interact with. Doggy daycares are always great because those are people that are spending $30 or more a day for their dog to go play while they're at work. So they obviously value their dog tremendously. So yeah, it's just making those connections in your community. It goes back to, it's very, very simple. It's not necessarily easy. And people get hung up on oh my gosh, what do I say? Oh my gosh, how do I contact them? And really, it can be as easy as, hey, I have a pet business too. I just wanted to introduce myself and meet you. If you ever need any photography, I'm happy to help. Or I would just like to help your business. Is there anything I could do to help you? And you kind of help that business first, and then you build this relationship. So, there's definitely ways to do that. You just can't go in there and be like, hey, I'm a pet photographer. Can I put my stuff on your walls? Will you promote me? Like, no, who, you, what?
That's great advice. That is wonderful advice. I'm going to come back to this question now from the audience, Juliana. She wants to know about clients who want to be photographed with the dog.
Yep.
They sign up for a pet session, but turn it into a family session. What might you do in a situation like that, especially because they probably aren't prepared to be photographed, but then excited where they are?
Yeah, no. So I usually avoid the situation by heading it off during our pre-consultation, like before the session even starts. I let them know, would you like to have some images with your dog too? Highly recommend it. Basically, I almost tell them like, it's not an option in a nice way. I just tell them that, like most people love to have some images of them with the dog as well. We can do a more traditional portrait. We can do these portraits where it's more, kind of relationship, candid moments. And I said, I can often, I usually even do some where the dog is the focus, but maybe you're in the background a little bit out of focus. So you're still in the image, but the focus is certainly on the dog. Would you like to do some images like that as well? And they're usually like, yeah. And then I might talk to them more like, are there one of these three that kind of appeals to you the most? And just so I start to kind of know what they want, but then they always show up prepared. And even if they're not, like there's ways to jump in and, maybe the dog is at if they're wearing like sweatpants or gym clothes, maybe you put them on like a bench, like a picnic table or something, and the dog's on the picnic table, or you have the dog on the ground and them laying on their belly. So it's just kind of their head and shirt, but you're not seeing their gym pants. So there's different ways to kind of work with that a little bit, or have the dog in their lap. And so it's the dog's head in their face, but you don't really see their clothes. But definitely the best way to avoid that is that pre-session consultation and talking about it then.
Okay. Thank you for the question, Juliana. Great question. I want to come back to the marketing and kind of just tie it up, wrap a little bow around it. And that is, we talked about Facebook. It's the icing on the cake. We then talked about kind of the community networking. Is there something we're missing, though? Is there something we're missing that is a necessary or a vital part of marketing as a pet photographer?
I think one of the things is definitely knowing who you are as a business and as artists, and like just having a brand that's somewhat recognizable. Not even recognizable per se, but professional. Like I've built a professional brand. You have a professional looking website. So it's clean, it's uncluttered. You have a logo that, doesn't look like a 3-year-old made it. You have an actual URL domain email, like all those things build into your business validity, really, in the eyes of the market, that you are a valid business, because it's so easy. You just need really a camera and you're like, here's my Gmail address and my camera, my Facebook page. I'm a photographer. And yes, you can be, but to be taken seriously by these other businesses, because when another business chooses to promote you or mention you, if their client then said, oh, I'll book them, and they have a bad experience, it reflects badly on the referring business. So that's why asking these different businesses and even charities to promote you, you need to kind of get in touch with them first, give them a taste of it, like offer a complimentary session for the business owner so they can get an experience for this, and then, or offer to take some marketing images for their business. So they get to know you and your experience, and then they trust you, and then they're able to recommend you more confidently, because, they've spent a lot of time building up trust in their customers' eyes, and they don't want to ruin it by just, telling people about something that they might have a bad experience at.
Yeah. And that's a good point. Yeah, it made me immediately, when you said it, it made me think of like if a friend sets you up on a blind date. Right.
You're like, what the heck were you thinking?
if it doesn't go well, you start to blame your friend.
Yeah, right.
More than the actual person.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Hair of the Dog. I want now to talk a little more about this group that you have, the Facebook group, which is now the podcast community. We're talking about branding and everything. Now, what is somebody going to get out of this group when they join this group?
Yeah. So the group, we have, so many people sharing just so many incredible images. You definitely get an inspiration of just all the incredible work that's out there, and all the different directions you can start to take your pet photography in. You get to make connections with other people that understand us a little bit, because it can be lonely being a pet photographer and, your family and friend network that they're like, what you do, what? So you get to meet people that understand what you do. And then, of course, we share some free resources in there. We have a ton of free resources at hairofthedogacademy.com. We're sharing our podcast episodes in the group so people can see what the latest is. We have a new one released every Tuesday. So, there's always just something going on in there, and it's just a great place to ask for help too. And you get answers from, all sorts of people in the community. We have, world-class photographers in there to people that are just getting started on their pet photography journey. So all levels are definitely welcome to join us.
All right. If you are not already a member, do yourself the favor. In the description of this live event, you'll find a link to that group. And if you are already a member, as you hear from Nicole, lots of exciting stuff coming all the time. So do be sure to check in frequently. And we mentioned before when you were talking about branding, how it can be so easy for anybody to become a professional photographer, so to speak, grab the camera, they have their Facebook or something, and there you go. I want to then ask you about competition. Like
Yep.
how, if you're a pet photographer right now, and if you are a true professional pet photographer and you have a decent brand, how should you kind of feel about this
Oh.
competition
I love
today?
this question. I love this question because so many people, their initial response is like hackles up, like, no competition. I need all the clients. Gosh, I don't have as many clients as I want. So there's no room in the market for somebody else. But it's not true at all. I challenge you guys to flip your script on this. And instead of looking at other pet photographers entering our genre as competition or potentially taking anything away from you, what if you looked at it this way? Let's back up for a second and start with when you say to somebody, when somebody asks you what you do and you say, I'm a pet photographer, do not 9 out of 10 people still say, wait, what? That's a thing? You just photograph dogs? Just dogs? like they still can't believe it. So that tells me that the awareness of what we offer people in the general community of the world is still very low. People don't understand this is a real thing and they find out, oh my gosh, pet photography, wait, what? So by having more pet photographers come into our genre, come into this business, they are going to be out there educating people that pet photography is a thing. And I think in 5 or 10 years, pet photography can be as mainstream as, say, family photography, where if you have a pet, you just know that you have a pet photography option. Where right now, this is not an exact science number, but I would estimate probably 90% of dog owners have no idea that pet photography is even a thing. So by having more people join us in this incredible industry, it raises that awareness, makes more people interested in it. More people are searching pet photographers, but there is a little caveat, and it does require us not to be lazy. It requires us to be putting our best work out there. It requires us to create a professional brand. It requires us to offer professional products and just give a great professional experience.
All right. The rising tide lifts all boats. That's kind of the sense I'm getting from that one. And
Absolutely.
recently, yeah, we talked about referrals with, separate businesses, but that can turn into a referral program too. If you're somebody who's overbooked and another photographer in the industry, you can invite, and that could become a vice versa kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many different, I'm a big believer in, learning different ways to photograph and creating a style of your own. So like learning different things and mixing this and mixing that and just really creating work and art that is true to your heart. And so my work looks very different than some of the other people in, my same area. And if I can't provide, or somebody's looking for a studio shoot, and that's not something I offer, I know who to offer that to. Or if they're looking for something, light and airy, it's not my style, I know who can offer that to. So and you're busy or not busy, or even just people that are looking for the right fit, we all kind of send referrals to each other, just to help that client.
A question kind of popped into my head. It's kind of random, but it's taken from what we were discussing earlier. You made me think of it when you talked about different styles.
Yep.
We started the interview and I was asking you about different pets and what you specialize in. As a pet photographer, do you recommend, that might be too strong of a word, but do you recommend, for lack of a better word, that a pet photographer focuses on like only 1 or 2 animals? Or do you think it's okay if they kind of run the gamut and do almost anything that a client might bring through the door?
Yeah, no, you can do whatever your passion is. I think the key is to photograph the subjects that you're passionate about and create artwork that, that is out of your heart, that artwork that you love, not artwork that you say to, that you think to yourself, oh, this photographer was successful, so people must want that type of artwork, so I need to create that. No, you create what you love, and you're going to find the people that love that too, because you're not going to be the only one that loves that. So it just comes down to choosing what your passion is. And, if you decide that I only want to market dogs, you can curate what you show. You can still have a cat session or a bearded lizard, bearded dragon session, but you don't have to put it on your website. So, it just depends. Decide what you want to do, and there's no right or wrong there.
And I think that was a point I was trying to get to as well, that what you show is what you should expect to get. So if you are like a
Mhm.
dog lover and you're like, why am I getting all these cats, or why am I getting
Yeah,
all these?
yeah. You're like, well, take the
Well, maybe
cats off
you're
their
posting
website.
them, and vice versa. So if there's something more that you want that you're not getting, maybe try to post those pictures more so than the others.
Yeah.
Um, but so great. So don't be afraid of the competition. Join the Hair of the Dog group. Get connected with the other pet photographers around the world. Over 13,000 members from around the world in that group. It's really a wonderful resource. Um, and in the audience, if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to ask them. I've kind of been bouncing around. I'm going to check my notes here to make sure I don't ask the same thing twice.
No worries.
Okay, so we touched on the brand that, yeah, it's extremely important for a pet photographer to establish their own and their kind of unique brand. And what might you say to a pet photographer who's kind of struggling to find what their brand is?
Oh, yeah, this is a great question too. So, by saying you need to create this unique and, brand for yourself does not mean you need to spend 3 years like perfecting your logo or choosing the exact right font and the exact colors. Like, that's not necessarily what the brand is. I think branding is more of what the public feels when they look at your business. So, by creating that professional brand, I'm talking again like those things like having a branded email account, having a clean, uncuttered website, just having something that looks very professional. You don't have to be like, I don't know, does that logo, should I do that font or this font? And like worry about that for months at a time because you're just wasting time. Like that doesn't really matter. You just want to put together a professional looking product and you want to give great service because that is also a big reflection of your brand. So that's where you should spend the time focusing on to create, to create something that then will get people referring you and talking about you and feeling great about your brand. And then when people, say something about a dog photography, your name is the first one on their lips to share with their friends.
Okay. If somebody is brand new to this, what would you say to them to kind of get some sort of a portfolio or some photographic, work under their name? Is it going up to clients as they would anyway, but maybe charging a lower rate? Is it going to like a shelter or something? Or how does somebody start to build that photographic portfolio as a pet photographer?
Oh my gosh, it can look like so many different things. Certainly, volunteering in a shelter is an incredible way to give back. It's an incredible way to get comfortable photographing dogs in a very challenging situation because usually you don't have this beautiful picturesque place to photograph the dogs. And the dogs are stressed, the dogs are scared. So you have to really work on that, creating trust quickly with the dog, having some little operant conditioning, figuring out how to get a good expression from a dog that's maybe in a, not an opportune setting that it's a challenging setting. So that is definitely a great way to build some skills and give back at the same time. But it's not necessarily reflective of what your sessions will look like outside, but the skills that you build there will help your real sessions. And, for doing real sessions, you can start off just asking friends and family for a dog, to meet you, to photograph their dog and them. You can gift images to them. You can gift them one and give them the option to buy others. You can, do a Facebook ad looking for some portfolio things or just put out on Facebook and ask people to share to get, outside of your friends and family circle. Just it can look like so many different things. So I like to kind of look at model calls and, when I need something in particular, as the first question I always ask myself is, what's my intention with this? Is it because I really want to photograph? Like right now, I actually think I might put out a model call because I really want to I got a new Canon R5. I want to go test it out with some action photos. And the lake just dropped their water level a bit. So there's actually places where the dogs can run through the edge of the lake, which you can't do in the summer because it goes all the way up to the tree line. But so I'm like, okay, I'll put a model call out for that. And then it's like, that's my intention. I don't really care. I'm not doing that to make a sale, to bring in money. Like, I just want a dog to photograph that can run through the water of the lake to play with my new gear. So that's going to look very different than, okay, I want to try to bring in to make some money during this off season while I also add to my portfolio at a few different locations. So maybe that gets set up a little bit differently where, you know, people get a complimentary credit and you're doing it in person sales. You know, so it really can run the gamut based on what your intention is. So asking yourself what you want out of it first is the most critical piece to that.
Okay. This question might be a little redundant now, so you can just kind of shove it away if it is. But if you know, you're years into this now, so if you could keep that knowledge, you know, and you're a top name in the industry, if you could keep everything you know now, but you had to start over completely new today, including this environment with COVID and everything, like what would be kind of your first move or moves?
Making connections in your community, 100%. And because that I think is the key to all of it. And that can be making the connections through charities, through businesses, just getting out from behind your computer and meeting actual real life humans. Yep. And just taking action, not being scared of it, you know, because that I think is a lot of times too, people get stuck in student mode and they get stuck with this belief in their head that I haven't learned enough to do this yet. But in actuality, you actually learn by doing. So you learn faster by doing and adjusting and changing. And there's no such thing as failure. It's just learning a lesson and being able to change it differently. Like the beauty of our business is we can pivot on a dime. We can change all of our pricing tomorrow. We can change our marketing. We can change everything tomorrow. We can close it down. We can start up with a new name. It doesn't matter. So test things and just take action. You're going to get a lot further faster than being stuck in like analysis mode, trying to figure out what the next move is. Just pick one and do it and then change if you need to.
I think that's a very valid point of taking action. And it is just kind of like in a general theme, because I think for me, at least, the longer I don't take action, the larger grow the like consequences of what might happen if I fail. When in reality, if I fail, it's not a big deal. But the longer I sit there and don't take action, you know, in my mind, like, oh my God, if I fail, I'm going to like lose my house.
And I've just spent all this time thinking about this. So I've put so much time in, it better work now.
Exactly. You know, so take action. People, you know, have some thought behind it. Don't go too reckless, but take action and meet the people. That was what Nicole summed up. If she, you know, that would be her first step. Well, as much as you can now with COVID. But meet the people is extremely important. Even with social media, though, once COVID finally passes, social media is great. It's the icing on the cake, but it shouldn't, you know, exchange the face-to-face, person-to-person interaction. I want to jump to kind of the sales aspect now. And I opened talking about our mini sessions promo, and I alluded to the fact we would talk about mini sessions. And there was an article I came across that you wrote about mini sessions, and I thought it was fantastic because I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of the perspective people have of mini sessions and why it's wrong and the way it kind of should be more viewed. And that is that people should not think of mini sessions as like a discounted photo shoot, but they should basically treat it like any other photo shoot. Could you just tell our audience a little more of what that was about and why this has turned out to be effective for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we start this pet photography thing, and there's, you know, as you're building your business, as you're learning things, you look at what others are doing, what others are teaching, and you're like, okay, this is how I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to do a session and deliver 30 to 40 final images and, you know, encourage people to buy an album and wall art and digital files. But sometimes clients just want a wall piece. And so there is nothing wrong with creating shorter sessions that have a different goal. And you know, and at first, like you look at mini sessions, and that's because I think the sheer number of people that are offering, you know, $50 and here's 10 images. And so you have this, clients do, but they're easily overcome that when you explain the benefits of what you're offering. And then we also do, we're like, oh, mini sessions just mean a lot of stuff for really cheap. But it doesn't have to be that way. It can definitely be, you know, just a shorter session with one particular product in mind, whether it's a canvas, whether it's something for your wall, whether it's for like a little, like that little triptych thing that you were showing earlier, Eugene. Like it can be, it can be for any specific goal. And they can be profitable. You know, you don't have to make it $50 for 50 images. It's, you know, $300 and you're offering this one piece that has a $20 cost of goods sold, and then they can add on digital files. When I was doing my mini sessions, usually my regular sessions had a price point, an average sale of $2,500 to $3,000. But my mini sessions had a price point of $1,500, like that was added onto, that was, started with a $99 session fee. And then I just sold from my regular price list. I just showed them less images. So they usually weren't doing albums, but they were still usually doing wall art and a print collection or a digital file collection. And it was still very profitable because you shorten your time. So there's 3 main keys to profitable mini sessions. And again, they can look like anything under the sun based on what your intention is. If you guys get nothing else out of this interview other than starting to ask yourself, what's my intention for this particular thing? Just asking yourself that question, you get such better results and answers and a path forward. So asking yourself what your intention for your mini session is, and then just working within these 3 pieces, making sure that you're touching on these 3 points, they will be profitable. Number 1, make sure that you are watching your time. So when mini sessions become not profitable is when you're doing an entire session for $500 that's usually $2,500 and you're spending the same amount of time on that particular client. That's not profitable. If you're able to streamline the booking process and your editing process or your sales process, you're able to streamline those, and then the time becomes more profitable. You also want to make sure you're offering something a little bit different. So either it's a special product or it's a smaller session with one intention, like a wall piece, or it's a studio session for mini sessions when you usually only shoot on location. So you're not just offering, oh, hey, here's my full sessions at a cheaper price. Like it's something unique and something different. And then the last piece is just to make sure they're profitable. So whatever you're selling, make sure that that you do have low cost of goods sold on that.
Okay. I see a question from Barbara, which is a great question. She says she finds that most people want digitals, which is a nightmare, or they only want 5x7s or 8x10s. How can somebody such as Barbara get beyond that with their clients?
Yeah. So my question for Barbara is, what's on your website and what are you showing? So it should start really with the sales process starts with their first introduction to your brand and your business. And if they go to your website and it's like, bam, smacked on the face with wall art or albums or whatever it is you want to be selling, then they're like, oh, pet photography. Because when people contact me, like, have you given any thought? Most important question to ask an inquiry. Have you given any thought to what you want to do with your images after the session? Most important. Write that down. Most people say, no, digital files or some prints. And then you say, okay, I do offer those, but most of my clients love to do something on their wall and or add on an album. I do offer prints and digital files, but they are usually included in collections with these other things. I'm geared towards wall art or whatever product is, and then say why. Because, I want you to have images printed that last forever. I find a lot of people that purchase just digital files, they stay on their computer, the technology changes, you never get to enjoy them. So my business focuses on creating beautiful, tangible products for your home so you can enjoy them every day. And not everyone's going to be your client. Some people still want some digitals, they want that $50 mini session. But just like McDonald's can be in the same market as Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, we can have our high-end boutique business in the same market as the people doing the low-end digital stuff. You're just serving a different client. And I would much rather serve that higher-end client and get paid appropriately for my time than doing something where I'm doing a whole bunch of cheap digitals and, working my tail off and realizing I made like $2 an hour. So yeah. And one other tip, Barbara, too, for those is because people want digitals. So make it easy for them to get them after they've purchased what you really want them to purchase. So maybe digitals become half price after purchasing a 16x24 wall art or larger. Maybe they become complimentary after purchasing $1,500 of product. You can make up the rules, whatever you want. Just make that a reward for doing what you want them to do.
Excellent. And to add to that final point from Nicole, at nPhoto, we offer many options of products that will include a digital option with the print product, things like a box for prints with a USB that can be included, or a complete set, which will have an album or a photo book, or even a folio box that can also include a USB option as well. Now, Nicole, great question, Barbara. Now, Nicole, specifically with mini sessions again, remind me, why should I not call them mini sessions?
Oh, yes. I say mini sessions a lot, not to clients, just within my community, because that's the easy way for us to explain them and to be
Right.
like, oh, a limited edition session. And, they're mini sessions, but we don't market them that way because the word mini does not sound luxurious or boutique or expensive or, just doesn't sound really luxurious is the main adjective there, that you want them to feel, I guess, special too. Like a mini session to me feels like, oh, here's just a little bit. I didn't have any time, so I just squashed you in over here. Where if it's a limited edition, like, oh, this is only available for a limited time. It's special. It's unique. Like it makes it more. I don't know what the word I'm looking for. People are more, excited about the opportunity, and it feels more special, really.
It has more of an allure to it.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it much.
So it could be any name. Artisan. I call mine artisan sessions, limited edition sessions. Yeah.
And it's a brilliant point. I didn't really think about it much until I read it when you wrote that. And it's true. Like usually when you say mini, people think of like, well, what's the main? What's the big one?
Right. Yeah. Right. You're like, well, if I'm going to spend money, I want the big one. They feel like they're getting just like a little piece of it.
Yeah. Would you like the mini vacation or the limited exclusive?
Yeah,
vacation?
Right. Yeah.
So
limited exclusive, please, especially after this year.
So that's a great point too. So talking with your peers, of course, mini sessions, so we can all understand what you're talking about. But marketing them, that might be something to avoid. That's great advice, Nicole. Now you talked a little bit about the way you kind of do things when you're talking to your clients. I was wondering if you could just take a minute and kind of walk us through what the experience is like for your clients when they come to you, like how you offer kind of your different packages, or where you start, even maybe with like a pre, with your consultations when clients are interested in you, and what's it like if I'm a client and I'm interested in Nicole Begley photography?
Yeah, absolutely. So full disclosure, I'm in the midst of totally revamping my entire photography side of my business because I have some ideas I want to test out, and these are not tested yet. Okay. But general rule being, so my website's going to have a massive overhaul. So if you go there right now, it's not pretty. It needs some attention. Anywho, so here's the challenge. It's always been. So you have potential clients coming to your website. They want information. We don't want to just send them an email of information because there's no value there. And then they price shop and they're like, why are you so expensive when, Jane down the street has 50 images for $50? And even if your work is like light years better, people don't necessarily see that. They might like yours better, but they might think, oh, hers is fine. It's good enough. They're both digital files. They're both photographers. Surely they're very equal. So we need to find a way to build value. We also need to find a way to build connection because people buy from people they know, like, and trust. And on your website, I've been to a lot of your websites, guys. There's often not a picture of you. I have no idea who you are, especially even when you have a photography business and it's like, fluffy dog photography. And like, there's no name about you. There's no picture about you. Like, guys, we're a personal brand, whether you have your name as your business or anything else. Like, we are a personal brand. So we need to be on there. We need to be on social media. Like, if you're going to do that social media, like, show your face every now and again. People want to make a connection with you. So in the traditional ways of doing this, like, they go to their website and we want to get them on the phone. I find, and I think it's, people are so busy. They have the attention span shorter than a goldfish. Getting people on the phone, I feel like we are losing a gazillion people, an actual technical term, a gazillion amount of our leads because people don't want to take the time to do that. But it's such a critical piece of the planning session. So how do we do that? I think the future of that is building video into our website of like having your face on your about page, like, hey, I'm Nicole, this is Zoe, and just like a little, like 30 seconds, not long. Again, no attention span. But then after they do an inquiry, maybe it goes to a little video page where it's you basically saying what you would say on the phone, to give them some more information. And then there's some more pricing. They can have some information too. Maybe you explain what's next in the process, that, okay, to move forward, we need to do a consultation, so you try to get them on that phone that way. But I think the key is getting them a little bit more to know you before you're asking them to get on the phone, because then they've bought into it a little bit more. So anyway, so that's what I'm going to be playing with in my new process coming up here. But so playing with that inquiry process. But the keys are, I talk about wall art on my website. Like every piece of my process, I'm talking about, how do you want to display your images? Most of my clients do this. I specialize in wall art. I have wall art for all decor, from acrylics to frame canvas, blah, blah, blah. So I'm always talking about that. And then once they book, we always have a pre-session consultation where we're talking about where we're shooting, when we're shooting, what they're creating again. Like, this is a conversation that happens literally every time I talk to them, that says, okay, before we talked about wanting to do wall art for your living room, is that something you're still thinking about? Have you given any thought to albums? And, I tell them, like, you don't have to make a final decision here, but having an idea of what we're shooting for helps me create exactly what you want in your session. So they're happy to talk about that. And then we have the session, and then we have our sales session. Could be in person or virtual, but it's live. So we're on at the same time, and I'm sharing things. My virtual sales sessions are just like my in-person, except we're just on Zoom. And I share my screen. And by that point, the sale's been done. They know what they want. And at this point, I'm just saying, like, we go through the images, we do a slideshow, we go through the images, and I say, here's some of your favorites. Here's what it would look like on your wall. Here's our different finishes. What finish do you like? What size? It's done. Like, there's no sales. So that's my process, really. It's just that sales process starts at your first website visit. Yeah.
And let us know in the audience, let us know if you, wow, it's the end of the day for me. I'm sorry, guys. It's 7 o'clock in the evening here. Let us know in the audience if you have any questions. I don't even have the excuse of not being a native. I am a native English speaker. Let us know in the audience if you have any questions about Nicole and her sales process. I'm sure she'd love to answer if you have any. I like that. I think that's great. And I think, as they say, the devil can be in the details. And I like that little question that you put out there in your explanation of, have you put, like, are you still considering wall art? Have you put any ideas in albums? Because that just puts it in their head in a very non-pushy way. Yeah. But it can get them to pause and think, she's been talking a lot about these albums. Maybe we should think about them a little bit more. Or it just, like you said, solidifies in their mind, like, no, I only want this. That makes then the sales process that much easier. One question I want to ask you, though, going back to the beginning of that process you mentioned, you talked about the phone, and I can't help but feel like, doing all my research on different types of photography, genres and things, that professional photography seems to have amassed a huge amount of people who are terrified of speaking on the phone. So what might you say to a photographer who's like, I just hate talking on the phone? How can they kind of go through that process? Would you say suck it up, or
kind of? I mean, yes and no. So I find, for me, I don't hate the phone, but I don't love the phone. And I don't like I would find that an inquiry would come in and I would want to call them, because the process was the inquiry come in and I would call them, and I would also email them. Usually they wouldn't answer, but I would call. And I found myself, like, an inquiry come in and I would be like, oh, I'll call in a little bit. Oh, let me just do this thing first. Oh, let me just do this thing first. So I'd be putting it off all day because I could, and I didn't really want to do it. So it was really easy to procrastinate. So I started to change my process in a way that, like, I'm starting to have this conversation and I'm asking clients, to book a time, to book a consultation. Like, once that consultation is there, like, oh, they're expecting my call right now. So it's really just getting over it and finding ways to make it easier for you to do it. I think I guess here's a question that I need to ask first. Ask yourself why you're avoiding the phone. Are you avoiding the phone because you don't know what to say, because you think they're going to say no, which they reached out to you? So it's not a cold call. You know, so find out where you're getting hung up, and then how can you get over that? Like if it's just you're worried about bothering them, tell yourself, okay, they reached out to me. And you can even put it on your inquiry form that, hey, after you set this, I'll give you a quick call. Or you can ask on your inquiry form, how do you prefer to be contacted? You can have phone or email. And if they hit phone, then you know they want you to call. But here's the caveat. If you do that, it is not like oh, good, they said email, so I never have to talk to them. No, that just means the phone call is going to happen a little bit later. So yeah, you just kind of have to suck it up. But I think before your session, sometimes people can book and then you have the consultation, but sometimes people need to have the consultation before. So it's really just about having that conversation with them, letting them get to know you, sharing the value of what you do, and asking them to book the consultation or asking them to book a session, and then talking to them in some manner.
But a little bit of tough love from Nicole.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm gonna let her say it. No, but you know, a similar question, just a little more broadly, was broached by Dale Payne, and he just asked, how can we best approach our fears? So that's a little broader. We're not sure exactly what the fear is. Maybe if Dale wants to specify what his fear is, but how can photographers best approach their fears?
I
just
love
doing
that
it,
question.
just kind of,
yeah.
That's a really open question.
I think the first one is figuring out what the fear is. So, you know, like I said with the inquiry, are you afraid that they don't want to hear from you? Are you afraid, you know, what is that fear? And then you have the best way to approach it. A lot of times our fears are made up gobbledygook in our head that we've just decided from one experience we had when we were 3 that, you know, this means that, and certainly everybody else has the same perspective on the world that we do. So we just let our conscious brain just tell us like, that's a stupid idea. You're going to get hurt. And we're like, okay, yeah, you're right. You're right. Instead of really just doing it and figuring out what my fear is. And if there's something like for the phone and your fear is, I don't know what I'm going to say. Okay. How about writing a script or a list of questions that you can use as talking points with your client? Then, oh, okay, that alleviates that fear a little bit. So yeah, so depending on what that fear is, you can find things like that. Or, you know, sometimes you just need to get help. Maybe your fear is, I don't know how to do this. Okay, well then get some mentoring, get some help, get some education on it, and learn how to do it. Because I think a lot of times the fear is based on not knowing how to do it. And certainly procrastination is, I think, a lot of times fear-based because we don't know how to do it. And so we fear we're going to do it wrong, and then we're going to mess everything up, and we're going to destroy our business and ruin our lives. But that's taking a little far.
But I think that's a great question that Dale asked, because I think that's, you know, that's a question that I think a lot, or an issue that a lot of photographers worry about. You know, I've done a lot of these interviews about a lot of different types of photography, and that type of question seems to come up in any of them. It's something that's really out there. And I think some people have it, but they don't want to ask it, like Dale has done that. And I think, like you say, all that and the irrational consequences, you know, like you say, oh, if I do this, it's going to destroy my business. It's like, well, no, you're just picking up the phone. You know, the worst they can do is say no.
I think the reason there's so much more, quote, fear in our business is because we're so personally attached to our business, because it's our personal brand. And so people's judgment of our business, we think, is judgment of us. So there's, you know, a lot more at stake for our ego. So yeah, so I think that's just knowing that it's just my brain trying to keep me safe. And thank you, brain, but I can call this client. Nothing bad is going to happen.
It could be a good thing too. You know, I put my name on any of the blog posts I write. And so that helps to make sure I double check everything before I post it and things like that. But yeah, don't let it go too far. And I just want to say something just to kind of identify. I don't want to make it sound up here like I'm asking questions, because people know I used to be terrified of so many things too. I was the kid who hated picking up the phone. I used to be terrified of public speaking. Now, all you have to do is go on our Facebook page for a second, and my face is everywhere. It's annoying. I know. I'm sorry.
Me too. Me too.
I'm working on it. But so I'm just saying that to say, yes, it can be overcome. And unfortunately, kind of like you say, Nicole, sometimes all you can do is just turn off that part of the brain. Like you just
Yep.
have to try to tell yourself to turn it off, or practice, like you say, make the
Yep.
outline, call a friend or somebody you really like, or whatever your fear is,
Yep.
find a way to practice getting through it. You know, when you have a true phobia, that's what they do, right? They
Yep.
introduce it to
Small
you in
steps
incremental
too.
steps
Yep.
until boom, finally it's gone. But
Yep.
you have to start somewhere. You have
Yes.
to start somewhere. We've had a few questions in the audience I will just jump to now. But thank you, Dale. That was a great question. Juliana wants to know, how are you doing your consultations during COVID? What's the best online way?
I do Zoom, just a Zoom meeting. And we do the same thing. I've always actually done my consultations. I've never done in-person consultations. I did for a little bit, but it didn't really affect my bottom line. My sales were the same either way. So I do give people the opportunity. I say we can do a Zoom meeting, or you can come to my home studio. And most people choose to do the Zoom meeting. It used to be a phone call. Switched to Zoom this year.
Okay. And in line with the phone and calling and phone numbers, Anne McGee wants to know if you think that you ought to have your phone number available, like on your website.
Yes, and then you should answer that phone.
Don't just get a separate one and throw it in the lake.
Yes. Yeah, no, you should. And I find myself like I don't like the phone. I use it. I don't like it. But I find myself now wanting to call places because my email is so crowded and busy, and I just wanted to find the answer now. And I'm worried if I email them, I'm not going to see the response, and I'm going to forget that I even emailed them until like 3 weeks later and be like, oh, right, I had that question. Where'd that go? So I find myself wanting to pick up a phone and get an answer. And I think some of our clients feel that way too. So it's nice to be able to have that availability to them. And I can guarantee you, even all of you guys listening to this right now and all the people that know that answering the phone is the best way to go. If you answer your phone or call people back immediately, you're probably going to get the job because no one else is answering their phone or calling them back. So, low-hanging fruit, people.
Yeah. And there are statistics out there just from like a pure marketing perspective. If you happen to miss a call, that the amount of time that goes by, decreases immensely. You got to call them back right away is what I'm trying to say. Like if you can get it within the first 5-10 minutes, the chances of you catching them and landing a deal are so much better. Same for emails too. If you happen to see an email come in, the sooner you answer it, the better odds you have of closing the deal or booking the client. So thank you for all that information about the phone calls. Yes, please, people, get over the fear. It's such a useful way for you to interact with your clientele, especially now when you can't meet in person very much.
Yep.
But even then, that's usually the first step of seeing someone in person. I can't get out of this live without asking you this question, Nicole. Going back to print products, you alluded to a lot of wall art.
Yep.
But what are some print products that you find to be very popular among your pet photography clientele? Which do they really love?
All right. So there's a caveat for this one. I think your pet photography clientele love the products you love because I don't sell a ton of albums, but I know pet photographers that sell an album to almost every client. But my heart isn't in the album. I like the albums, but my heart is on the wall. Like I love creating a big statement piece of wall art. I don't even love the gallery so much. So most of my clients tend to purchase one big wall piece. And I love that. And actually, as I'm reevaluating my pricing and everything for next year, I'm going to structure it around that my sessions are going to be built around a wall piece. And yeah, they can take it or leave it. No, but so wall pieces are my biggest seller, I would say. I also love I don't sell individual prints. So I sell little print packages, and I actually use the little photo boxes, with the print boxes from you guys from nPhoto for one of my options for my 5 print little collections. People like those. So any small little, cause that's like a good desktop if people want some extra images that can't fit on the wall. And I do love adding on digital files. I don't like selling digital files on their own. I love adding them onto a product. So I do not mind shooting for that big wall piece and adding on a digital file collection for them for the rest of their images. So it really just comes down to you getting clear what you love and what you want to sell. And then you create your business around that.
Yeah. And that product that Nicole was referring to is called the Image Box from us. And it's included in this mini sessions promotion I discussed at the earlier live session. So 45% off for the client order version of that product. And that can be ordered with or without a USB. So you can market it without the USB, but you can surprise your clients and say, hey, you've qualified for the USB version. Here's one included in your image box as well. So you can get those digital files. So you heard from Nicole what works for her clientele. Yours might be a little bit different, but a nice way to hear some perspective on the industry when it comes to print products. I'm going to put out a last call to our audience. Oh, and here's Dale Payne, but let me finish. So Dale, we'll get to your question. And I'm going to put out a last call for any final audience questions. We're going to be wrapping it up soon. I have one question left for Nicole. We're going to get to Dale's, and anyone in the audience, if you have any pending questions, please put them in the audience, the comments, and we'll get to them. But then otherwise soon we'll be wrapping it up here with Nicole. So Dale wants to know, are the digitals you offer only low resolution?
No. Well, they get low resolution watermarked web files for every ordered image. So every image they put on a product of some kind or print in some way, they get the low res version. And then they can add on a high res collection or add on the high res images to their product too for an additional fee.
Okay. Thank you, Dale, for the question. Again, last call for any other questions from the audience. I have one last question for you, Nicole. We're unfortunately still in the midst of this COVID pandemic, but even in general, once this passes, what would you recommend fellow pet photographers do to keep their business on top if they are experiencing kind of a lull or a period of slow business?
A couple different things. There's always ways that we can market our business for upcoming times. You can have some promotions. You could do charitable fundraising or the charitable marketing that we talked about, and just say that we're going to be holding our, even if you're in lockdown, we could be holding our session as soon as it's safe to do so. So just be always thinking about marketing, planning your marketing and getting out there and starting to make those connections and do that. And you can also use any downtime as a time to really look at your business from a high level of, is my website professional? Can I update this? Like what needs my attention? Can I look at my client or my client experience? How can I improve that? So those little things will always help take your business further.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time, Nicole. Oh, one more question from Marie. She wants to know, what's your recommendation with connecting with business owners during COVID? Email, social media messages, phone call, going in person right now is tough.
Yeah. So I never really went in person as without an appointment because I didn't want to be like that. Hey, you're in the middle of something. Because if somebody, get really mad when my kids walk in and I'm in the middle of something, I'm like, get out. Actually, I'm nicer than that sometimes. But anyway,
that's when the negative reinforcement comes in.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually positive punishment. It stops them from coming in. It stops the behavior. Anyway, I digress. So I like to reach out to them in some way otherwise first. So you can, I've had luck connecting on social media, direct messages on Instagram. I've had luck asking my clients, if I'm not, because I didn't have a pet. I didn't have a dog for the first 6 years of my business. So I was the only pet photographer in the land without a dog. So I wasn't a customer of any of these businesses because I didn't have a dog. So you can ask your clients, hey, where are your favorite dog businesses? What are your favorite, places in the area? And then you can reach out to them via email or even a phone call and say, hey, we have a customer in common. They recommended I contact you, wanted to just talk about a way I could be of assistance to you. You can highlight different businesses on your blog. I have people in my Elevate coaching program that I run through here at the Dog Academy that have started community podcasts where they're interviewing other dog business and charity owners on a community podcast. So they're making connections left and right in their community, and everyone's going to be recommending them when they recommend pet photographers because everyone knows them and likes them and trusts them. So, yeah.
Okay. So social media has been working for Nicole. There was a moment when you kind of
at
least for me, I don't know, maybe it was, but just in case, social media has been very effective for Nicole. Thank you for the question, Marie. Travis says, thank you. for being here, Nicole. I want to equal his thanks and appreciation for you joining us today on this live chat segment. And thank you to the audience for being so engaged, for tuning in and having such wonderful questions and comments for Nicole. And be sure again to check out all of her platforms that we have listed in the description of this live chat, and some we might have added in the chat as well. Thank you so much again for tuning in. I'm here with Nicole Begley from Nicole Begley Photography and founder of Hair of the Dog podcast community. You all stay safe and take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.